once again, we're talking about our good friend Jason Lee Beckwith, the drummer and founding member of a Los Angeles-based Kiss tribute band, Kiss Alive. And we got cut off for a minute, but we're back talking. We've been talking to Jason about recently suffering a heart attack and kind of how he's been recovering. So we're glad to hear that. So you want to continue on with the story, Jason?
Yeah, well, like I was saying, when they got me up on the gurney and they opened up the door, and then all these people are like, pouring out love and stuff and shouting at me while they put me in the ambulance and stuff. I see a bunch of kids in the front. Okay, and what a lot of people don't know about me is on Sundays for the last couple of years I've been volunteer teaching Sunday school, right? So, and I don't, I keep it to myself because I do that because that's between me and God. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
I don't really talk about it is to try and encourage other people to pitch in and help sometimes when I'm doing the charity gig or something like that. But I say that to say this: I'm in tune with little kids. You know what I mean? It breaks my heart to see a little kid like who's having a bad day or whatever. So,
I hear you.
That's just what I do now. And I saw a bunch of little kids with their parents, from the campground. And all the little kids were up in front when I opened up the door and started putting me on the gurney. And they're looking all scared and wide-eyed, And so I did the best I could to, muster up some thumbs up for these kids. And I'm like, don't sweat it, you guys. These guys are going to take good care of me. I'm going to come back. We're scheduled to come back here in about a month and a half. I'll be back. We're going to come back and we're going to finish the show. Don't worry about it, So I didn't want the kids to worry. That was the only part that really bothered me. I knew I was going to be all right. I had a feeling that they were going to be able to take care of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's good. Now you mentioned that you started having chest pains at the venue. Now, do they think the actual heart attack took place while you're on stage during, or
without a doubt, it started while I was on stage. I was having it probably for a good 5. Because sometimes it doesn't hit you like a sledgehammer. Yeah. Sometimes it just gradually increases. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I had, is kind of a creeper.
Wow. And so, would you say this was any more brutal than the first heart attack you had suffered, or would you say it was?
Well, actually, this is my third.
Oh, okay. Third. Wow.
The first heart attack, didn't really even know it was a heart attack until I had the second one.
Okay.
They misdiagnosed it as something else called pericarditis, and which your heart swells up, or the sac actually that your heart floats in swells up, and that creates problems or whatever. So when I had my second one, though, that was a whole other ballpark. Yeah. It's like my first heart attack was like, let's say, playing a good-sized theater for maybe 1,000 people, 1,500 people, right? Maybe 2,000 seater. Okay, that's what the first heart attack was. The third heart attack, the one that I just had, was probably playing that same place, but it wasn't quite as full. Let's say, right? My second heart attack was probably like selling out a South American soccer stadium with 70,000 people in it. Okay, or playing Rock in Rio with 350,000 people in it. That's what the second one was like. And that unfortunately happened while I was driving to a studio session, and I was alone on the freeway in my car.
Wow, how scary! Well, it could have ended. Could have ended much worse. Thank God it did.
Well, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
I thank God it did. I don't want to get too deep on it, but I'll tell you, man. It obviously I'm still here to
talk about
put in some work, or I'm here for a reason. So I'm going to enjoy the blessings that I have. And one of the blessings that I have is being able to play music and play drums. And I got this band that I like doing, and
you're going to keep it going.
I'm just going to enjoy it while the gigs come in. Every year when we wrap up our gigs for the year, I look at the calendar and say, well, if this is the last thing we do, I had a great time. And honestly, every gig I look at now, I go, well, if this is my last one, I'm cool. I've got no complaints. We just finished up playing Las Vegas. And we were seen by over 50,000 people in one weekend. What's not to be thankful for? You know what I mean? I'm lucky, man. I'm so lucky, and I've had a good run. So whatever comes next is just icing on the cake for me. I'm just happy to be around and hanging out, dude.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but we're going to, on the heart attack front, we're going to end on this note. Just how ironic. Think of how it could have ended, the fact, too, that it happened on your birthday. I mean, just think about that for a minute. You're born on the same day that you die. That's how it could have. That's how it could have played out. And then the final thing I'll say on that is, like you said. Now, just think if it had gone the other way. How would you have felt about the fact that you kind of went out, playing on stage, playing at a gig in front of your audience? I mean,
I got one word for you.
Yeah.
Let me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
I'm gonna play till I drop, dude. I don't care. It doesn't matter if I can physically get up and play. Yeah. I'm gonna play. I'm not gonna stop playing. It's just I that's what I do. It's in me. I hate to sound like a walking cliche, but dude, I'm going out with my boots on, dude.
And I got to tip my hat to you on that, my friend, because the other thing I wanted to ask you about is it seems like from that little bit of time ago when you had this most recent heart attack, it seems like you're right back up on stage. How long did it physically after the most recent heart attack get you to from the time you suffered a heart attack to be back on stage?
Less than 2 months.
Wow, that's quite a recovery. I mean, and I'm sure that
it was 6 weeks to be perfectly honest with you.
Wow. And so, was there a lot of?
It was let's put it this way. It was August 4th, and it was September 15th.
Okay. And I remember shortly after it was announced that you had suffered a heart attack, I remember seeing a posting on your Facebook page with the rest of the guys from a band with I guess another drummer, but he was in Eric Carr. Makeup did they play a few gigs without you?
Yeah. Let me explain that photo. That drummer that was dressed up in those photos as Eric Carr is my good friend and soul brother, Scotty McDowell. He is the drummer for. Let's see, what's the band's name? They're a tribute to Bruce Springsteen called Thunder Road.
Oh, wow.
And they're amazing.
Okay.
And he was the drummer for that. And then he's also played drums on and off for some really good friends of mine, a band called Groove Kitty.
Okay.
And here's the deal. Part of the thing about me getting back on stage so quickly was, I wanted to make sure it was cool with my doctor.
Yeah.
And it was. And two, that was a no-brainer from my wife. She's like, you better get an okay from your doctor first.
Yeah.
So, and hey, I'm married to a Brazilian, so they you don't listen to your wife, and they'll just cut a man. So I don't mess with her. So she said okay. So I got the okay from my doctor, and then the other thing was. I thought I want to. Every show, honestly, every show we do, especially in a repeat venue. And we've played there for a few years now. And matter of fact, I got to say, a lot of our places that we play on our schedule are repeat clients. And I say that with pride. Actually, I think repeat business speaks for itself. When you can say that you've been playing a venue for 7 years or 6 years, like we just booked a show up in Big Bear. It'll be our 6th year in a row at this venue.
Wow, that's great.
So you try and change it up. You try and add stuff on, right? And obviously it's a given, and it seems light. It's like I'm making a joke out of it to say that I don't know how it's going to top the excitement of that last show. But
yeah.
I figure, well, here's a way that I can play it safe, but still do this. I don't want to play around with it. I don't want to. I've got a wife and I've got a son. And bottom line is, aside from all this stuff, if it all went away tomorrow, I got a family and I want to stick around for him. I have a son who's in 9th grade. I want to see him graduate from high school.
I hear you.
I don't want to be irresponsible. It's easy for me to say, I'm going to play. Bring it on.
Yeah.
When I have a family at home and I have a kid who needs a dad, and I have a wife who needs a husband to be present, and I have kids that, like seeing me, in Sunday school. I don't want to give up on any of that. I want to play it safe. So I asked my buddy to come down and play some songs, because we play from all eras of Kiss. We play from the early albums to stuff from the Tommy Thayer era, Modern Day Delilah and things like that. That's something that's coming up. We haven't played that yet, but there's a little drop for you.
There you go.
So we play all that stuff. So I said, dude, why don't you come and play some of the Eric Carr stuff? And so and that way it engineered me like a break. Like we do Beth and actually we just recently added Hard Luck Woman. Speaking of Kiss Alive 2, we added Hard Luck Woman to Beth, and we don't do them to backing tracks like I used to do Beth to the backing track with the strings and stuff. But then we started, I'm a big fan of the MTV Unplugged special in 1996 where they got the original guys back together and did a great acoustic version of Beth on that. So I told the guys, I mean, I got a great band, my guitar players and my guys, we really got some talent in this lineup now. It's the best, honestly, it's the best lineup in the 7 years or whatever that I've been doing this band. It's the best lineup we've ever had. And so I said, why don't we do it acoustic? So we worked it up acoustic.
Wow, that's great.
Best, and then Hard Luck Woman, we do both of those. And then I had, so that, gives me a break from playing drums. And then my buddy Scotty came out dressed as Eric Carr.
Wow.
And he did, War Machine and Lick It Up.
Wow.
And so that was like a nice little, 10, 15 minutes where I'm not playing drums. I get to catch my breath. To find out, I probably could have played the whole show. I felt like I probably could have played the whole show without, having him come up. But it was really nice to have him come out there. I mean, and look out for his buddy like he did. You know what I mean?
That's cool. And does that give you the thought like doing some more like one-off shows like that, where you don't necessarily make it a regular thing, but every so often?
It's already been talked about, man.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. I've all that stuff. I'm open to that. There's. And if he can't, there's other people that do that too. And I know most of them. It's a small pond I swim in, and I'm not above, I'm not above suiting up as the Cat and showing up at somebody else's or having one of them come out, dude. I got no issues. So I mean, you're gonna see stuff like that because we're about doing stuff like that. I like to do stuff that's not the normal. I want to give people extra.
And before we get into that, Jason, I wanted just to touch on one more thing regarding what you're saying about, as much as you love to play it, you're more about like, being healthy and being around for your family, which I think is a very, very smart thing. Because I mean, a great example of that is look at the recent passing of, iconic rocker Tom Petty. I mean, he dies of a massive heart attack. Found suffering a heart attack all alone at home. I mean, nobody had a clue that this guy was even ill or had a bad heart. I mean, so that just goes to show you. I mean, look at Tom Petty, and maybe if he'd gone to a doctor, who knows? But I mean, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
Well, hindsight's 20/20, though. You know what I mean? But all we can do is, if we're lucky enough to still be standing when we get the message, or whatever hint life or God or karma or whatever is trying to throw at us, you take the hint and you move forward with it as best you can. And for me, it was just another reminder of how short life is. Those little electrodes that they put on you when you have any kind of like heart work done or whatever. I always keep one of those from the time I had my first one. I always keep one of those in my wallet, and they had this little sticky on them, right? So I put it in my wallet with this little sticker on it. So every time I open up my wallet, because that's the one place you're going to see every single day of your life, just about. You got to whip out your ATM card or your cash or whatever. So you're going to get into your wallet probably every single day of your life to go get gas, whatever. So that's one place I know that I'm going to look physically every single day of my life. And so I open up my wallet, and that's a reminder daily, constantly and daily. Life is short. Appreciate what you've been blessed with.
Now, before we get in talking about Kiss Alive 2, you mentioned earlier about the fact that the band recently played a gig in Las Vegas, and you were sharing with me that that's the first time that you guys had played Vegas since the recent massive Vegas shooting massacre, whatever you want to call it, that took place at Mandalay Bay. Now, was this at the same venue?
The Rock and Roll Marathon, and I personally have been involved with that company probably for well over a decade now through my old band, Jason Lee and Friends, and then now with Kissed Alive. And with Kissed Alive, we've been involved with them probably about, I think this was our 5th year in a row that we did it in Vegas. And the Las Vegas one is probably... It's a very unique marathon in itself, but it's the flagship of the Rock and Roll Marathon series. They do it all across the globe, but they're always like in the morning, and then the fog and stuff. And Las Vegas one, they run it in the evening, and they close down the entire Las Vegas Strip for it. It's the only time all year, really, that the entire Strip is closed. And they put, a couple of bands out in the middle or along the side, let's say, and They had like a headliner concert the night before when they do the 5K, and this year it was the Goo Goo Dolls and stuff like that.
Wow,
but, originally, where the headliner concert was scheduled to be in the exact same spot as what went down.
Wow.
And obviously when it first happened, everything just got put on hold.
Yeah.
A lot of conversations. Are we even going to do it? Not for nothing, and I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back or nothing, but we just told them, look, you guys figure out what you want to do. If you want to do it, we're here. We'll do it. We want to play it.
Great.
We'll be there for it, because they've been there for us, and, I spent a year and a half when I was younger living in Las Vegas, so I got a thing for Las Vegas. And they've been real cool to us. So
that's good to hear. But
when they finally decided they wanted to do it, we said, our stage was right out in the middle of Las Vegas Boulevard.
Wow.
I mean, how can you say no to that, right?
Yeah. Let's be honest though. Were you at all in regards to a recent shooting massacre? Were you at all nervous? Were you at all nervous about playing the show, or did you feel?
Honestly, not at all. And I'll tell you, we played 2 days for them. We played their 5K, which is basically you're in an enclosed field. It's actually the same field where they have the American version of Rock in Rio, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
We played there last year too, and like the sound crew that was there last year, some of their gear still had stickers from the Rock in Rio show on it.
Wow.
My wife is Brazilian, and so, man, Rock in Rio is a dream for me. So that's like 3 degrees of separation from the real deal, right?
There you go.
I was in my mind. I was having fun that night, right? But here you are, like in an enclosed field, within distance of probably a good half a dozen hotel towers, right?
Yeah.
And so were we worried? No, because honestly, the police presence was
everywhere.
They were everywhere. They weren't like making it obvious, and they weren't shoving into people. They weren't being like that. You had to look for it. But if you looked, you were comforted by the fact of you felt secure. Let's put it that way. It wasn't like they were being jerks or nothing. It was just cool. Everyone made an effort to just be cool. And to be honest, where we were parked before the show, I was hanging out in my car with my guitar player. It turned out to be like there's a cop that pulled in, and he starts getting some stuff out of his car. And then 5 minutes later, like another couple of cars. Within 10 minutes, there was probably about 15 cars in this parking lot, and being a band guy, and having a lot of creative youth, I had a moment of, wait a minute, did I do anything wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine. Well, it turns out they were just staging. They were just staging some stuff, and then they were going to go off and patrol. But, I mean, they had stuff on the roof, and we knew we were going to be safe. From that moment on, it hit me that, there is no, I mean, first of all, can you be safe from something like that? You can't.
You can't really. I mean,
you just can't. Especially being on a stage with spotlights, you can't. It doesn't matter how many, unless we're physically surrounded by bulletproof plexiglass. While we play, there's really nothing you can do in an outdoor concert setting to be completely safe. But you know what? Dude, I got to cross the street, and there's cars, and they weigh 2,000 pounds, and if I get hit by one, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
But you got to go across the street. What are you going to do? You can't stay at home because you're afraid to cross the street. That's, I mean, God bless my guys. None of them blinked. There wasn't even a question between, I don't even think, I mean, I asked them real quick. I said, by the way, if anybody wants to stay home, I can get a sub. I'm not going to hold it against you or nothing. And nobody said nothing. We were just like, why? The food is gone, and we're as safe as we're ever going to be. What are we going to do? Stop playing outdoors? If we didn't play that one, then we would never play outside again, because it's just as much risk no matter where we are. Las Vegas risk wasn't increased, and if anything, we were probably in the safest place to play those 2 days.
Yeah, I love that mentality of, the show must go on. Now getting into our main topic for tonight is Kiss Alive 2. Now, we once did an interview talking really about Kiss Alive 1. Now, Kiss Alive 1, of course, when that was initially released in 1975, those first 3 Kiss albums really weren't selling, but there was something going live with the band, as we know, and people heard that Alive 1 album, and just, it took off, and people started going crazy. Realized, wait a minute, there's something going on with these guys live that they weren't getting on the studio albums. And then
plus you had the genius behind Jimmy Hendrix albums, Eddie Kramer.
Yeah.
You know, so that's a 1-2 punch. You can't. I mean, Kiss Live plus Eddie Kramer equals a landmark album, which is what it was.
And then, you know, we were talking earlier about Destroyer. Also, now, Alive 1 and Alive 2 are booked in by in between those two albums. You got you know, Destroyer,
Love Gun,
and Rock and Roll Over. And the thing about it is, Paul Stanley, I've heard him in interviews over here saying, well, by the time we came, you know, 1977 came, and we thought about releasing Kiss Alive 2. The thing that was, though, he says the reason for that, for those new studio tracks on the fourth side, was he says a lot of it, we were still playing a lot of tunes, you know, off of Kiss Alive 1. A lot of set list was those songs. And
if you hear any concert from that time, they had probably about half stuff that was off the old Live album that's still in their concerts because they're staples.
Yeah, and you know, Jason, in preparation for this interview, whether or not you and me were chatting, and we both were commenting how the recent Kiss cruise this year, both the Killer Brothers got up on stage and they put a great band together, and they did a set of Kiss tunes, you know, that they played on over the years. And
Can I just say, I want to publicly send out a message to Bob and Bruce Kulick. I don't know if you're ever going to hear this or not. You know, I'm sure you are, because if not, you should, because everyone should be listening to this podcast, but and everyone should be listening to Rock Sound, and everyone should be listening to my good friend Jason Houston. But that aside, I want to send out a message to Bob Kulick, to Bruce Kulick. Gentlemen, please take that on the road, man. I will buy a ticket to come see that, or just, you know, let my band open up, but take that on the road. That was amazing.
I totally agree. And, you know, the thing about it was, the thing about that show, see, if they were to take that on the road, they could do much more than just the Kiss songs they perform on. I mean, Bruce has got enough, 3 solo albums out. He could pick some of his own solo tunes. Bruce has got Bob's got a solo album out now. They could mix it up, even take some of the stuff they did together in Meatloaf. I mean, I think it would be a phenomenal show. You know,
I think so too. I think, you know, they had a great backing band on that on the ship too, man. I mean, how can you go wrong with that? So take it on the road, dude. I would love to see those guys. You know, I mean, here's a thought. Oh, here you go. Get with the Apsey brothers, you know, Vinny and Carmine, right? And they're doing their little brothers tour. And put the two bands together and go do a tour.
There you go. And, you know, I'm glad to I'm glad to see Bob Kulick finally getting some love, because
Bob Kulick is amazing, and he's an unsung hero of Kiss, and he's certainly the MVP of Kiss Alive too.
Oh yeah, that's the next point. I mean, he's been underrated all of these years. I feel very
when
much.
I first met him briefly at a NAMM convention some years ago, and that's the first thing I told him. I ran into a drummer that I kind of sort of knew, Ray Luzier from Korn, who at the time was playing for David Lee Roth. And he was hanging, and I was actually talking to a good friend of mine, Randy, and we were like looking at some stuff, and I think maybe he had just gotten the gig with Korn, I don't know, and I saw Ray's stuff there. There was a booth that he was going to be at, and so we started talking about it. I'm like, yeah, that's a picture of him right there. That's what he looks like, and he's a good drummer, you know. And I was talking him up or whatever. All of a sudden, he taps me on the shoulder. I turn around, there's Ray, you know. And he was standing with Bob Kulick. Matter of fact, I'm in my office right now looking at a photo. There's Bob on the one side, and there's Ray on the other. But when I met Bob, the first thing I told him, I said, man, you don't get near enough the credit you deserve in the history of Kiss.
Oh yeah, very humble guy. And it wasn't until, you know, just...
And he was, too. He was kind of like I don't want to say aw shucks kind of thing, but he was definitely, you know, very humble about it. He was like, well, hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and you know, the funny thing is, unless you're a diehard Kiss fan, a lot of people did not know that he played on those Kiss albums until just, you know, as recently as the 1990s, I think. And he had some kind of deal where he was good friends with Gene and Paul, and he kind of had a deal where, okay, I'll play on the albums when, you know, Ace doesn't show up. I'll kind of do my ghost parts, and I'll keep it quiet. And a lot of musicians would not do that. They'd say, oh, they told me to keep quiet, but no, I think I deserve my dues. Or very humble guy, like you're saying, and he's kept it secret all these years. And he waited until, you know, Gene and Paul kind of let it out of the bag that, oh, did you know Bob played on the, you know, on Alive 2, and he played on these other tracks, you know. So he waited for the guys to kind of let that little secret out of the bag. But I think it's great that people finally know he played on. And it's funny because if you listen to those studio tracks, it's amazing that Bob plays nothing like Ace, although he does a great imitation, if you know what I mean.
Yes, exactly. Playing in that style, sort of like the Revenge album when Bruce Kulick went to a more kind of straightforward style of soloing, sort of. Yeah. Not that he was ever trying to play like Ace Frehley. I don't think you could ever say that about Bruce Kulick, ever. But I think when you play more of a Les Paul guitar, instead of like the Ibanez or the ESPs that he used to play a lot in the 80s. I think he played a lot of ESP guitars. And I think that when you play those guitars, they lend themselves to, you can do certain things on it that I think a guitar like a Les Paul, it forces you to play a certain way because of its weight and its size.
I
tend to think of like guys like him, guys like let's say Zach Wilde, very different style of players, but when you hear their playing, if you actually break it down, there's certain things that remain the same because the guitar just demands it.
And it's amazing. Bob Kulick, like you said, really has been an unsung hero for many years. But now, after all these years, if you go back and look at his body of work, I mean, he's played with everybody, not just on those Kiss albums. Played with Meatloaf, Alice Cooper. He's played with Wasp. He's played with Diana Ross, Lou Reed. He can do almost any kind of music. I mean, he was known as a session guy for many years before anybody knew he played on any of those Kiss albums.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it was probably the 80s or 90s before I ever even realized what was going on with Kiss Alive 2. The studio tracks on the back of it. I mean, Ace really only plays on one of them. Rocket Ride, and that's because that's his tune and he sings on it. It's just like I think the only one on Psycho Circus that I know of that Peter Criss played on was the one Ace sang on because it wouldn't have it any other way. But I think the rest of it was maybe Eric Singer.
Well, from what I've heard over years, the drummer they got, not Eric Singer, but the drummer they got to play on that primarily was a guy named Kevin Valentine, who was briefly played with Cinderella.
Oh.
Yeah. So and even if you go and you do an internet search, like there's this other great podcast called Three Sides of a Coin.
I've seen that.
They've interviewed
those guys. They're cool.
They've done an interview with Kevin Valentine, so you can maybe research that. But and then I think Peter played on the one song, and of course he sang for one tune. But and I think Tommy Thayer and did most of the guitar tracks on there, like we know now. And
right. Of course.
And then Bruce did a track or two.
Yeah, and what can you say? I mean, they keep it in the family, and it's like I said, to these guys' credit, it shows you that Kiss has gotten a lot of flack over the years for being self-serving, for being grandiose, for being sellouts, for being commercialized or whatever. But when you actually look at the evidence objectively, they're a lot more human and a lot more soulful at their core than I think people realize. I know those guys do a lot of charity work that people don't realize. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And they put their money where their mouth is. And do they have success? Yes. And have they earned the right to be successful? Absolutely. Like, Jason Newsted from Metallica said, do we sell out? Yes. Every concert we play.
Yeah, can't argue with that.
If you're successful, you shouldn't have to feel sorry for that. But what do you do with it? I mean, do they encourage people to go out and get wasted every night?
No.
No, they don't. Quite the opposite, especially these days. They warn against it. Even when he does a song like Cold Gin, which is about the consumption of alcohol, more often than not, he'll say, hey, but by the way, you know what, we like to have a drink too, but you know what, get a designated driver, get an Uber, whatever, so we can come back and all rock and roll again. I mean, they don't encourage people they encourage people to have a good time, to love and to laugh and to celebrate, and I think there's nothing wrong with that, but they do a lot of very cool things and they just don't need to advertise it.
Oh yeah, and going all the way back to 1974, kind of talking like what we were talking about with Cold Gin. I mean, you've heard all these years about what Straight Lace guys Gene and Paul are, and you can say what you want about that, but if you listen to the Hotter Hell album, the track Mainline, okay, like that's a song. If you listen to the lyrics, it's basically about Peter kind of talking about his use of mainline cocaine, and these other guys are not non-druggy. Just had no idea, I guess, what the song was even about. They just thought it was a cool sounding song. So that's a great example of that, And
afterwards, you got to be looking back and going, "Oh,
yeah."
But yeah, no, I mean, what I meant to say is that even all the peripheral guys and the guys that came after the originals or whatever, they don't go out and brag. Like you talk to a guy like Bruce Kulick, he goes out there and waves the flag for the band.
Yeah.
And I think he kind of gets a raw deal because I don't see why they couldn't invite that guy out sometime and celebrate him a little bit more than they do. You know what I mean? But I think it was great what happened this year, and I think that was a big change in the weather, let's say. I think it was great to see the Kulick brothers both getting their due because they've been so instrumental in the history of Kiss. Bruce Kulick and his guitar work, really gave that band a shot in the arm for a long time. With the different like trends, like when people were doing a lot of tapping, he's like, I got that, and he was doing all that tapping stuff, that Van Halen style, everything that came after Van Halen when everyone wanted to tap, he did some of that, and then when people wanted to start getting raw again after the like bands like Guns N' Roses and things like that came back around and grunge started happening, where people were starting to get raw with their music. Then you have Revenge, and he goes to playing more of a Les Paul style, raw, kind of just plug in and play and burn, that kind of thing. And, and they don't they never bragged about it, you know what I mean? They're out there going, oh, I did this and I did that. No, you know what? They keep their mouth shut. They do their job, and when somebody asks them a question, they'll talk about it. If not, they don't really go out there and toot their own horn. And these guys are really all kind of a class act family. Yeah,
it's kind of funny because, like, you make the point about Bruce Kulick, and I think, the reason, he is, and I think the reason the guys even still even talk to him is for that reason alone. He kind of knew his place.
And he never went out and tried to cash in. He would do the conventions, but when he's going out and doing a convention as a member of Kiss, you know that the guys know about it because he's not going to go there and say former member of Kiss if Kiss don't know about it. So he does everything above board, and it shows you a good way to do it. That's a good example of how to do it.
That's a class.
That have been in Kiss, let's say, that at times you look at them and go, that's not how I would have done that. You don't bite the hand that feeds you, let's say.
It's kind of sad because you take a guy like Vinnie Vincent, very talented guy, but and you even look at Revenge.
It's great to hear he's coming back out of the woodwork again, though. I'm curious to see how that's going to go.
Yeah, you and me both, and the guy's been away.
Raleigh is playing with Prince, and they're going to be playing at the convention. I'm hoping to hear that they got to jam with Vinnie.
Well, that's cool. Raleigh's a great guy, but getting back to Bruce. He's a really stand-up guy, like you said, and the thing about a guy like Vinny, very talented, but if he had played it like Bruce Kulick, who knows where his career would have gone? I mean, nobody's heard from a guy in the last 20 years. That's why.
Can you imagine the music that he could have made?
Yeah.
But honestly.
Yeah.
Listen to the Invasion stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Would he? Let me ask you. You're just as into this stuff as me. Do you think he could adapt it to modern times, like let's say, a Slash did, or even like some of the other guys from that time, like Van Halen did, or whatever? Do you think he could have adapted, like the shredder mentality of like the Yngwie, let's say? Yngwie is known for being Yngwie. For better, for worse, if you love him, you love him. If you don't, if he's not your cup of tea, he's never going to be your cup of tea because he's kind of always does his thing. His genre is AC/DC. It's a very solid, steady product, and for those that like it, he gives and delivers what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
I think,
let's say Vinnie Vincent, his style and the production and the sonics of it, would he have been able to adapt? I'm curious
here's the thing.
How he comes out in the modern age.
Again, the guy hasn't done nothing in the last 20 years. And,
right. What's he going to sound like when he comes out? Is he going to have new music?
Yeah, well, here's the thing.
I would love to hear it.
Yeah, here's the thing. I definitely think the guy has that ability to do that. Now, the question is, will his ego allow him? And I'll give you a perfect example. Now, if you go all the way back to, okay, let's not forget that he's a co-writer on I Love It Loud. He played some of the tracks on Creatures, and then his main album, Kiss, of course, was Lick It Up, where he was a big co-writer on that album. And
before that, he was a session guy for people like Dan Hartman.
Oh yeah, who was lead singer for Edgar Winter. Now the interesting thing about Vinny, I don't know if you've had the opportunity. I've heard a lot of these unreleased demos that
where he's singing.
Yeah, where he's singing. Guy had I never could understand it. I think he was just as good of a singer as a guitar player, and I did like the very first Invasion album. Like as far as shred stuff, I thought that. That was a great album. When he did with Mark Slaughter, I didn't really like. I thought a lot of his best stuff was with because even '96 when he tried to come back, he put out a.
Honestly, I wish they would have had more bass on those albums because it would have been a lot more listenable. The playing was so phenomenal, and I think the thin production style of the time, because it was all about we want to split your ear with the guitar sound. Like Judas Priest with their album. Not Screaming for Vengeance, but the one that came before it, Defenders of the Faith. It was all about that guitar sound. It was very thin, and there wasn't a lot of bass to it. If like, let's say they'd had Dennis Drum really heavy in the mix, I think those albums would have been timeless.
Yeah, well, I've heard the guys that played with him over years, Mark and Dana, and I think even Bobby Rock, they were saying the thing with Vinny was he overplayed, if you know what I mean, and rather than he wanted all eyes on him rather than doing what was best for the band. It was all about kind of feeding his ego. And
well, you know how they say that time heals all wounds.
Yeah.
Well, it's also true that time wounds all heals.
Yeah.
And we go through things in life that change us. I'm not the guy that I was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot of hard lessons in life. When you go through tragedy, and when you go through, let's say, a near-death experience, or when you go through something like losing somebody you love, even if it ends in chaos, when you still lose someone you love, it's tragic, and I kind of share that with Mr. Vincent. I know he lost his wife, and I've in the last several years I lost my ex-wife.
Wow.
Things may not have ended well, and things may not have always gone well, but when you lose somebody you love, it just changes you.
Of course, And
I say that to say that, I think that everybody should give the guy a fair chance, and let's see what happens.
I hope so.
If he wants to come out and play music for us, I think we should welcome him back with open arms.
I hope so. And, in recent recent postings he's been making on the internet in regards to this Atlanta Kiss Expo coming up January, I believe it's 18th, 2018, when the event's going to take place. I understand that also at the event's going to be Robert Fleischman. He's always, really talked a lot about
that's awesome. The original singer from the Vinny Vincent Experience and the original Journey singer.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people don't know.
And so that's very exciting. He's always, talked about how much he loves Robert. So I think that's a good sign, the fact that Robert's willing to...
that would be great. Can you imagine if they wrote a new song together?
Yeah. And,
maybe they're doing that right now.
Yeah, who knows? Cool. And that would be so...
Come on, give us some new music, buddy. I want to hear those fingers again.
And I don't know if you're aware of this, Jason, but talking more about Vinnie Vincent, I'm sure you heard the Peter Criss solo tune, Tears. It was on his Let Me Rock You solo. Did you know that Vinnie co-wrote that song with Peter?
Wow, no, I did not know that. I did not know that. It's funny that behind the scenes, all the different kind of ways that the people that have been in Kiss together, not even necessarily at the same time, have connected. Like, he also was in, he tried to put a band together with Mark St. John for a while. They did some writing and stuff together, and it's funny how they all kind of connected,
Yeah, and also if you search later on the internet, like if you type in Vinnie Vincent Tears, you can you'll find a demo of that with Vinnie, I think, singing, which is pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, you know what? It's maybe that's what they'll do. I mean, he could do his own tour. Wouldn't it be cool to have him on a G3 tour?
That would be so cool. Yeah, and now getting back to
I want
life.
to see a tour with Bob Kulick and Bruce Kulick, man, because I want to hear, because you'll never hear Any Way You Want It. You'll never hear, I think they might have been doing Larger Than Life or Rockin' in the USA, but I don't think they've done Any Way You Want It. And,
No.
And, I want to hear it with the guy that really originally recorded it with them, and that's Bob Kulick.
Yeah, now let me ask you, Jason, going back to, you mentioned, you bring up a track, Any Way You Want It, which is originally a Dave Clark 5 tune, I think. Now, when you first heard that tune off of Kiss Alive 2, did you have did you think at the time that was a Kiss song?
You got to understand, I was 8 years old.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But as it goes along, eventually you find out. But they were doing that as far back as the first album. They did Kiss in Time, and that wasn't a Kiss tune. That was like a 50s tune. They did. What's the one on, I believe it was Love Gun, and Then She Kissed Me?
Yeah.
They did. That was Martha Reeves and the Vandellas tune, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, I love not only when bands do covers like that, but they kind of...
Go off the map and do something you would never in a million years expect a hard rock band to do that. You would never in a million years expect the God of Thunder, the blood-spitting, fire-breathing demon of Kiss to do When You Wish Upon a Star. But he did on his solo album because you know why? Because you can.
Yeah.
And why not? Life is short, dude. Do what you want. If you want to do a ballad, do a ballad. You want to do a country song? Fine. So they did. They did a Hard Luck Woman. Which also shows up on Kiss Alive too. Yeah. And the way I hear it, that wasn't really a live tune. I think that's one of the tunes like Tomorrow and Tonight. I think they did them in a warehouse.
Yeah, and then talking about that now, oddly enough, that was another one of those tunes that was sung by Peter Criss, but Paul Stanley wrote the tune.
I believe that Paul and Gene, the way I heard it, were. They're trying to, start marketing themselves as independent songwriters too, and so they wrote that song, Story Goes. I don't know if they wrote it expressly with this person in mind, but they tried to market it to Rod Stewart. And if you listen to the vocal style of that song and the beat to that song, it's very Maggie May-ish, let's say, And he turned it down, or, you listen to it. I've seen some interviews where one of the guys in Kiss says, well, we thought better of it, and we thought, no, it's too good of a tune, so we kept it for us.
Yeah.
And I've seen other interviews where Rod Stewart turned it down, so then they kept it, and who's got the raspy voice in that band? Well, that's Pete. So they had Peter Criss sing it, and they knocked it out of the park. I'm glad they kept it.
Yeah, I was curious if you got a chance to check out the Kiss Rocks Vegas DVD, because on there, actually in some of the bonus section there, they do a great acoustic version. The current lineup with Paul, of course, taking the lead vocal, and he can because he wrote the tune.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, no, I've seen the video of him doing that song, and I've done it a few times over the years and stuff like that. I actually would have liked to have heard Eric Singer do it, because I think he's got a really good voice too, and he's got more of that rasp, He doesn't sing anything like Peter Criss, and I know he doesn't try to sing anything like Peter Criss. And that's maybe why they have Paul sing it, because I think he's probably like, I could sing something else. I don't know. It's like, him singing. It's like when they had Eric Carr sing Beth for that Greatest Hits compilation they did in the 80s. It's like, you can, but maybe not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and regarding the Eric Carr Beth, I understand that from everything I've heard people say over the years that Eric really didn't want to do it. The guys kind of made him do it, and he was all worried about it. And he was and I've heard even Peter Criss say, he says, Eric called me up right away, told me, oh, Peter, I hope you don't hate me. I really don't want to do it. They're kind of he said, no, don't worry, Eric, just do it or whatever. But, I heard Peter Criss was more pissed off at the guys kind of, wanted to do an updated version, but he wasn't.
What? I mean, I see it, but then you flash forward to now, and it's just been done and done. So that's just another thing that Kiss set a trend for. They said, you know what? We don't want to play by your rules. If we want to record it with an updated version, and that guy's not in the band anymore, why shouldn't we have the right to re-record the tune? It's a Kiss song. We can't help it that guy didn't last as long as we did in the band. Why should that stop us from doing the song? If we want to have Tommy Thayer play "Shock Me" on stage and have him sing it? Why not? Because Ace isn't in the band, should we stop singing it? No. And to that extent, now, and then you look at bands like Anthrax. They did a whole album like that called "The Greater of Two Evils," and they redid a bunch of Joey Belladonna era songs. And they had John Bush sing them.
And it's funny you say it because I remember
another thing that people will go, dude, that's not cool for a band to do. And Kiss says, I don't care what you think, I'm going to do it anyways. And then after Kiss did it, it became commonplace.
Yeah, and I remember seeing Kiss the last few years on tour, and one of those shows, Tommy Thayer did sing "Shock Me" live, and man, I tell you,
I saw him do it.
And I thought he was great.
The tour they did with Motley Crue.
Yeah, I think that's where I saw him do it, and he was really great at it. I mean, you close your eyes, he's to me. He's a great singer in his own right.
Well,
but
he spent time in a Kiss tribute band. He knows how to get it right. He was hired because he knows how to get it right. He does what he's told. He's a team player, and he gets it right. I mean, is he Ace Frehley? No, he's not. No. He didn't write most of that stuff, but so what? You know what? I mean, times change, people change, and from all accounts, he's a professional guy. He does his job, and he plays the songs how they're supposed to be played. Can't really ask any more of him.
Yeah,
and you can't fault the guy for being in Ace's makeup. It's not like it's his, shot. It's not like anyone's under the illusion that if he really didn't want to do it, that he could tell Gene and Paul, "I'm not doing it." They run the band as they should, and it's probably their gig. So I mean,
and they've been there.
He's a team player, and thank God for him because we still have Kiss to go and enjoy in concert.
And they've been there for over 40 years doing it, and I do think they have more right to be there than Peter or Ace. Nothing.
They know what gets it right because they're still there.
I mean, nothing against Ace and Peter,
justify the means, and success and longevity speak for itself.
Yeah, and one thing I will say about their longevity is, at the end of the day, even if Kiss never makes another album, although I hear Varen talks about that, they've got their legacy. And at the end of the day, I think overall what made Kiss last so long is Gene and Paul are just great songwriters. You put on any Kiss tune, and they've all got great hooks. Look at how many songs are played on the radio every day.
Oh, but they're not technically blah, 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 or they're not blah, blah, blah. You know what? You know the songs. If I put a song on, you'll be humming it.
And you know what? And if Ace and Peter had the business savvy with Gene and Paul, they might be as rich as I mean, it goes so much beyond just music and merchandising. I mean, if you've read any of the books, like, okay, is it really...
You can sit around and blame people for your tragedy, or you can get up and you can keep going and you can just move forward,
Is it really Gene and Paul's fault that the other guys were stupid enough to sign away the rights to their makeup? I don't think so. And you say,
Well, no, you're under the assumption that they both signed it away. As I understand it, that's not necessarily the case. I think one doesn't own, and I think maybe one leases.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. I think the one that's had a history of maybe not being quite so happy with those guys over the years, I think he sold it. And I think, from what I understand, I could be wrong, but I think I've read some interviews where I think Ace still owns his makeup, and I think it's a lease type of situation.
That would make sense.
I don't think he sold it back. I think Peter Criss definitely sold his rights back, maybe even as early as the
reunion.
Reunion in '96.
That makes sense, because I remember when they came out with that Kiss put out their own tribute CD, "Kiss My Ass," and there's a little mashup with the cover because Ace didn't want them using his makeup design at the time or whatever, and so they said, okay, well, we'll just alter that.
Yep.
Yeah. And so now the tune I really loved, like I love the studio stuff on a live too. Like I think my favorite song, I really think if that Gene was rocking in the USA. What would you say was your overall of a new studio?
I'm looking at it right now, and I gotta say, first of all, I'm gonna say Rocket Ride. Because it's Ace, man, and it's pure Ace. That song is his style of songwriting. It's everything I love about an Ace song. It's got the innuendo. It's a cool song. It's got a great thing, and that solo at the end is awesome. It's like that was the year like that Van Halen was coming out the year before, and they had Eruption and stuff. So everybody was doing solos, and here's Ace, and is he going to be able to cut it? And then he comes out with something like that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could listen to that all day long. Now that aside, if if you're going to talk about the songs that, let's say, Bob Kulick did, my all-time favorite of those is All-American Man. I think the riffs on that are nasty sounding. I love Paul's delivery on that. He's like, I mean, I just love it. I love the drum riff on that. I just love the feel of that tune. I think it's kind of nasty. I dig it.
Yeah, I dig it. And I could email you the information. Like the title's skipping my mind right now, but in regard to the Bob Kulick tunes, him and Bruce a couple years ago, they put out this great DVD where they each kind of go over some of how to play some of the Kiss tunes that they played on over the years. So that's a cool thing to check out. And I think Bob kind of goes over how he played All American Man, how he came up with the riff, which is kind of an interesting thing. Now, I got to ask you, of course, before we wrap this up, Jason, being a drummer, the man that plays the role of Peter Criss in the band here, when you heard Kiss Alive 2 for the first time, what did you think initially, if you compare it to Kiss Alive 1? Because, what I loved about and this was really Kiss Alive 2 we're talking about now, very first time a band released a live album with like new studio tracks. At the time, I thought that was okay. So you're not just getting these great live tunes; you're getting some new music as well.
I'll tell you what. As much as Alive 1 was a mind-blowing, life-altering experience for me, I mean, they really, by then, they had perfected the art of making an album into an experience. Before there was 3D, before there was IMAX theaters and stuff like that, these guys, they turned their album into a full-body experience, man. There had tattoos that went on. Part of this album literally attached itself to the listener's skin. Literally. It didn't just sink into your brain figuratively. Literally, you took this out, and there was tattoos that went on your skin. There was stuff to read. There was stuff to look at, and then there was the music. And they just knocked it out of the park. And I'll tell you what I liked about this album. And it really affected the way I play, especially influencing the way I play. I've been playing. Well, Kissed Alive has been around in one form or another for about 7 years now, and we're not stopping anytime soon. Actually, I just literally in the last 48 hours, I've booked probably 5 concerts for 2018. So we're not stopping anytime soon. But it's affected the way I play. The tempos on that are like twice as fast as the stuff in the studio, and then I love it. It's almost a punk rock album, dude. I mean, the way they play Detroit Rock City, the way they play Making Love on that tune is a punk rock. On that album, it's a punk rock tune, man. It's raw and it's in your face. Is all of it completely live? No. And guess what? Don't care. Just like the other live ones.
I'm just like you.
I don't care. It's a really great album.
Yeah, I'm just like you.
You feel like you were at a Kiss concert. It's a complete experience, man. I love that album. I love the fact that they play the stuff faster because that's how I play. When we play Kiss shows, when we do these Kiss tribute shows, man, I play it like I mean it, dude. And we play a little faster than the albums. I like that. Like the way we play War Machine is like the way they play it live off their 1984 DVD, Animalized Live and Uncensored. It was. It's twice as fast, and it's awesome. It's the best thing ever. So that's what I love about this album. It's punk rock, dude.
Yeah, and going back to what you said, I don't, it wasn't really a known fact until they did a classic album on Kiss Alive 1, and all this stuff came about, but they went back and kind of redubbed some stuff. But I don't even care. I don't even care because you know what? When I listen to those albums,
because the microphones aren't going to pick up everything.
And when I listen to those albums,
playing live, what people don't get, it's not the fact that we're perfectionists and it's got to be perfect. No, it doesn't. It's rock and roll. They're not playing to a click track live. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you got to hear everything that's in the song. So if the microphone doesn't pick up something, you want to bring that up a little bit. And if you don't have that on the track to turn it up, then just put it in on the studio. It's no crime.
Yeah, when I listen to either Kiss Alive 1 or Kiss Alive 2, I don't even care. You know why? Because I don't care if it's studio editing or what or dubbing. It sounds like I'm right in the crowd, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. That's the whole purpose of their live albums. It wasn't to capture a performance on a certain night. It wasn't designed with the band in mind. It was designed, well, it was, but it was designed with the audience in mind. And this is another thing that Kiss doesn't get near enough credit for. They think about their fans way more than they get credit for.
Oh, yeah.
Their live albums were never intended to be a document of a concert or two concerts. It was intended to put the listener in the seat. If you want to know what it's like to be at a Kiss concert, and you haven't been to one yet, and they're not coming around, put on one of their live albums and put on some good full head, full ear covering earphones that block out everything else, and forget the little earbuds. Those are for wussies.
Yeah.
Headphones and sit down and listen to a live too. That will make you feel like you were listening to their concert. So if they had to retouch it, that's okay, because the purpose was not, look how great we sound. The purpose was, man, are you having a good time or what?
Yeah. And again,
and that's what it's always been with Kiss.
Yeah.
It's not, look how great we are. It's, damn, isn't this fun?
Yeah, and I got to make note of this before we wrap this. Kiss Alive 2 was, of course, famously recorded at the LA Los Angeles Forum. The special guest on that tour, I believe, was Cheap Trick, who was just coming out at the time. And as a result of that Kiss Cheap Trick tour, Cheap Trick's still around today, all these years later. But that's why, if you listen to the song Surrender, there's a little part where they, during their live show, where they throw out Kiss records, and they.
That's right. It's an ode to those guys.
My mom and my daddy were listening to Kiss records.
I'll give you another one.
Yeah.
I was talking about these concerts that I did that my band did at Mission Bay this year, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you yet or not. I may have in passing, but obviously when Ace left Kiss, he had the band Fraley's Comet, right? Now, who was the lead singer besides Ace in Fraley's Comet?
Todd Howard, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, Todd lives about maybe less than an hour from my house, and we've come to know each other over the years, and he has actually given me some vocal lessons over the years. He's been kind enough to kind of befriend me a little bit, and so we're not hanging out every week, but if I email the guy, he'll say hi. That kind of thing. And he gave me a couple lessons, and so he's been to a couple of our shows, and he came out at our first show at Campland this past year and did Cold Gin with the band, and then he came back out and sang Rock and Roll All Night with us. But I'll email you later, and you can post a link to it in the description for this interview, so that people can enjoy this. I have a great clip of it, and it's Todd Howard doing Cold Gin with Kissed Alive, live on stage in Mission Bay. Sounds phenomenal. He sings some of the lyrics, and he does some of the guitar, and he's just out there having fun.
How cool is
that?
Now,
having said that, you know that just recently, Fraley's Comet had a reunion of sorts. Everybody but Anton Fig. Because the new band that Todd and his Fraley's Comet bandmate John Reagan put together with the drummer from, I believe the drummer they have now is the original drummer from Skid Row, Rob Fuso.
There you go.
And so they have a band called 4x8, right?
Yeah.
Well, and they recently did a gig where 4x8 played on the same bill as Ace Frehley's band somewhere in New York, right? And and they did Cold Gin as one of the tunes they did when they got together. So I like to think that maybe I'm not saying nothing for nothing, but maybe Todd warmed up Cold Gin with my band first, and then he went and did that. I mean, little known fact, and I've never really said this in an interview before because I don't brag on my friends, but I don't think that Todd would mind me telling you that I actually. I'm sure that they can talked over the years, but I think the first time that he had hung out with Ace in many, many years was I had a hand in helping with. Ace was coming to a book signing when he was doing his book, No Regrets, and he was coming to a book signing in Oceanside near my house where I live, maybe 5 minutes from my front door at a Barnes and Nobles, right? And I had kind of known, Todd for a little while. He had been nice enough to come out to a few things, and him and I did a pair of his songs acoustically as a duet at a benefit show we did for the veterans one year, so we knew each other. So I emailed him and I said, hey man, you going up to see Ace? I mean, he's coming into town. you know, why don't you go and say hi after all these years? And he's like, I didn't even know he was coming to town. I said, yeah, he's going to be 5 minutes from my house. So I went down earlier that day, and he says, go down there and tell the guy that I'm coming then. So I went down. I left a note with the people that were at the store, with their manager. I said, give this to Ace's people when he shows up. So when I got there to line up, I went in and talked to his handler. And I said, I don't know if you know who I am, but I left a note, blah, blah, blah. He reaches into his jacket pocket, and he pulls out my note, and he says, oh, you mean this? Yeah, I got it. When Todd gets here, bring him around, bring him up to me, and you know, make sure he gets in here. So I'm out there waiting for Todd, and he's running late because he's a rock star. Todd, I love you, but you're a rock star, so he was running late. And so by that time, they had already gone in the back, and Ace was signing stuff for and talking to the employees, right? Wow. And so I got Todd and his lovely better half, and I whisked them around to the side door, and in they go to the side door, and they're going to go in and hang with Ace. And I'm not presuming nothing. I'm not there to, hang out and be a pest or make a nuisance or whatever. So I start walking back to my car, and I hear Todd go, hey, Jason, where you going? Come here, dude. So I go on in there, and I'm fly on the wall while him and Ace reconnect after probably about 10 years. So
wow, how amazing is that?
That was pretty cool, man. And at one point it was funny because I heard Ace looks over at Todd, and he says, hey, Todd, hey, who was it that played drums for us again during that time? Oh, yeah, Anton, that's right. Wow. I was laughing, man. These guys, I mean, because they've been just around the world together, and so, you never know, sometimes it gets a little fuzzy as time goes by. Well, but it was nice.
Well, obviously, that's a great story, and I could talk to you all night, Jason, but it's kind of getting late, so we're going to wrap this up, but I do want to tell you, I don't know if you ever had a chance to listen to the Ace cover CD, but I definitely strongly suggest you do, because there's a great new version of Cold Gin, which I think is...
Oh, I love it. I love it, and I love the version that's got
Parasite.
Yeah. John
5, there you go.
Are you kidding me? That's amazing. I cranked that version of Parasite in my car. It's one of my favorite songs to play live. And speaking of playing live, I've got a few things I can announce before I go, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Plug here.
Sure.
Just in the last 48 hours, we have been very busy boys. The first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be going back up to Big Bear, our home away from home, at the Cave Concert Hall on February 2nd, and we're going to be playing with our great friends in a band called Groove Kitty. Okay. They own a music studio that teaches, they give lessons to kids. They put kids' bands together and stuff. And we've been rehearsing there since the very first days of this band. They're like family to us. They played the Las Vegas Marathon with us, that kind of thing. So they're coming up to Big Bear with us, and we're going to have fun up there. People can go to the website for the Cave, and I think tickets are already on sale now. If not, they will be very soon.
Okay.
And then in April, looks like we're going to be heading back out to 29 Palms at a place called JROCK Casino. We've been playing there for a couple of years.
Wow.
Then in May, we're doing a meet and greet at Comic-Con Revolution in Riverside. People can stop by our booth at the convention. We're going to be there for probably both days, hanging out, signing, and taking pictures with everybody. And unlike a lot of those famous people down there, we don't ever charge. Just come out, hang out, take a picture. You want to hang out? We're going to probably play acoustic at our booth. Do some unplugged performances. So that'll be something to really watch because it's free with admission. Just come on in and hang out at our booth, and we will serenade you. La la la.
Yeah, and any chance, like at the last Comic-Con that you attended, that there be any like new Kiss Alive merchandise, like any cards or?
Yes, actually, there will be. There will be some new swag to be had.
Oh, great!
Booth, but I can't tell you what it is yet.
Well, I just say.
Tell you, but then I'd have to kill you, my friend.
Yeah. Go and be surprised. And well, we've been talking about our good friend Jason Lee Beckwith, drummer and founding member of LA Kiss tribute band Kiss Alive. Thank you so much, Jason, and I'll be sure to let you know when this.
Jason Houston, it's always a pleasure talking to you, my brother.
You too, my brother, and I'm glad that you do have 9 lives like the original Catman himself. And
I'm not going anywhere, man.
That's great.
I'm going to go back to the stage, and I'm going to go play.
Okay, well, you have a good night, my friend, and we'll be in touch.
Take care.
Okay, bye.